Hello everyone, I'm Rick Jenkins, the publisher of SC Biz News, the media company that serves about 100,000 high-level business executives throughout South Carolina. Welcome to SCBIZtv and another episode in our ongoing video series, Industry Trends. The trend we're discussing today is workers quitting their jobs in staggering numbers. The trend has been so dramatic, so significant, so unlike anything we've experienced before that it actually has been given a name. You know what that is. It's been dubbed the Great Resignation. Get this. Last year in South Carolina alone, approximately 70,000 workers quit their jobs every month on average. That's about 3% of the state's workforce in any given month. So what does all this mean? How are employers dealing with the turnover? And more importantly, what's making all these folks quit? Here to help me sort it all out is my friend Herb. Herb is the founder and CEO of Human Technologies Incorporated. HTI is a workforce strategies partner headquartered in Greenville, but doing business throughout the state, the Southeast, and even in parts of the Midwest. Man, you are everywhere.
All over the place.
All over. Herb, how are you, man?
Doing well. Just trying to get people to fill jobs.
Right.
In these times, which are tough for everybody. So
right.
It's an exciting time to be in labor, but hard.
I bet.
Yeah.
Long hours probably.
Long hours.
Gotta fill
and
jobs.
trying to be creative to get people back to work and.
Right.
And, you know, the last 2 years, it was so disruptive. I just think it's like kickstarting labor back.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Fun time to be in my space.
I bet it is. I bet it is. So let's talk about what we have dubbed the Great Resignation, or some people say the Great Quit, or the Great See You Later, or whatever it is, right? 33 million Americans have quit their job for whatever reason they have quit it in the last year or so.
Yeah, and actually I saw that updated. It was 41 million as an update as of last week for 2021, which is amazing. 41
million last year.
Last year alone. Just resigned.
What's going on? Why?
Gosh, I mean, it's a lot of different reasons. I mean, and they're going to study this for years, and we're going to read in the history books about this period. But, you know, I think the 2 years having to do with COVID and post-COVID, I think a lot of mindset change occurred. You know, you and I talked about this earlier, two-income families. 4.2 million families decided to be one-income family last year. I mean, so there's 4 million employees that just left the workforce. Almost 4 million Americans retired early. They originally intended on working to 65. They're 58, 59. They just decided that they would not work. So when you start adding all those numbers up, it just turns into this workforce shortage. I saw a statistic from the Wall Street Journal that came out. We have 100 jobs right now, but only 60 people per 100 jobs. I mean, it's an amazing situation.
How is it impacting the economy then? Has to be impacting. I know us. We feel it every now and then. We have a job opening and it's difficult to fill. I mean, what's happening out there?
Well, I think the first reaction most companies have, and this is a lot of what we do, is consult with companies on how do you go ahead and have an alternative strategy to getting good people. The first reaction is to pay more. So I think we've seen that across the board. If you go anywhere, starting at the lowest wage jobs, McDonald's, you know, places like that are typically entry points, all those wages have gone up, and it pushes wages up throughout sort of the workforce. So the first thing you saw happen is competition on wages. Wages have gone up, what, 25% over the last 16 months. So that's the first thing. And then you've got, really honestly, with this younger generation, a heck of a lot of them want to work from home or want flex work. Right. So we're just seeing a lot of innovation. Let me tell you a positive and a negative. The positive of what's going on is I think it's forced companies to think differently about what they do with their workplace, right? So it's creating innovation out of necessity. I think the negative is that there are some companies that are really doing well with that, and then some companies getting left behind. Right? So there's becoming a disparity between the companies that really understand what to do and the companies that don't know what to do. And so those are the guys that are really, really struggling to fill jobs, or they're turning people over really quickly, and they have morale issues. And then you have these companies that are really leading the way, saying, hey, we're going to keep adjusting to go ahead and address the issue that we have, which is A, a labor shortage, B, a different mindset on what this younger generation wants as far as work. And adjusts their workplace for that.
You know, about a year and a half ago, I don't even know how long, COVID has messed with my mind so much in terms of timing. I can't remember when things happen. But a year and a half or so ago, you and I were sitting at this desk.
Yep.
And we were having a very similar conversation about working remote. And that's kind of the trend that we were discussing at that point when everyone began working remote in the beginning stages of the pandemic. And we talked at that time about, you know what, this is a trend that is not going away.
No.
Right? We talked a year and a half ago, this is a trend that's not going away. Some people, as you just alluded to, some people hung on to that trend and, you know, embraced it, and some didn't. But working remotely, tell me where we are with that. Is it true it's never going to go away again?
I think you're going to have hybrid. I think one of the things that we're finding now as we've had 2 years of this, and I'm hearing this a lot, we're hearing this a lot from employees looking for jobs. I think what really employees want is some choice. I think, because we're hearing a lot from employees that are working totally remotely, how much they miss the collaboration of being in an office and having that relationship. So I think what you're seeing now is, and I think what's going to land is a hybrid, where you're on a team, you work remotely 2 or 3 days a week, but 2 or 3 days a week, you're in a workspace in which you can have a face-to-face relationship. Because do you agree, Zoom doesn't, you know, whatever the team, Zoom, whatever, it's not the same as you and I sitting here talking, right?
It's not.
And communicating. And so I think what you're going to see really good companies do is say, okay, we're going to give you the ability to work flexibly, and we're going to have you understand what success looks like in your job, right? Which a lot of companies don't do well, is defining what is me being successful defined as. And then giving that employee the ability to sort of work in the best way that they can, but have that time where the team comes together on a regular basis. I mean, I talk with employees all the time who have never met their boss face to face. I mean, it's really, and it's not unusual now.
No, it's not.
It's not unusual now. And you've got people now that, and we're seeing that here in the upstate, where people are moving in the upstate, but they work for a company in New York City, but they're deciding to live here.
Yeah, I know plenty of folks.
So I think a hybrid is going to be where we land.
I think so. I mean, we've done that here at SC Biz. You know, we're in a hybrid situation. You know, and when it all happened, Herb, when it started, I was a no, we can't do that kind of thing, right?
I'm a little bit that way
I don't
too.
want to go down this road.
Age. I think that's our age.
I think it is.
Right.
You know,
honestly.
I went into it stomping my foot, saying, "Come on, no." But I realized, just like we all have realized, I think, or many of us have, that sure we can do it. You know, you change mindset and you go down a different direction. A few months ago, there was a 60 Minutes segment, right? Everybody knows 60 Minutes, right?
Oh, yeah.
The CBS News magazine show has been around for 100 years. And they had a segment that was on what we're talking about, basically. And lo and behold, they used Greenville, South Carolina as a place to come and have conversation. And there were a lot of our business associates that were interviewed on that segment. It was great to see some of those guys. But anyway, what came out of that that struck me, and I had known it for a while, but boy, it really hit home good with me after I watched that segment, and that is that employees have all the leverage these days. And boy, do they, right? I mean,
they do. They do.
We're having to adapt to that, not the other way around.
No, and if we're not adapting as employers, we're not going to get the people that we need to get. I mean, in South Carolina right now, we have a 3.6% unemployment rate. 53% of the people unemployed are not even looking. So that means we're competing for 1.8% of the workforce. So those companies that listen and begin to think about how to change how they approach their engagement of their employees, those are the companies that are going to have picked up the litter. And the companies that don't do that, that try to stay doing it the old way, they're going to be getting what's left over, and that's not going to help their company grow. I mean, I see examples of this all the time because, you know, we work with 100 different companies and consult with another 100 companies on employee strategy. But there's some really innovative things that are happening out there right now. You know, one of the things that I spoke at the Greenwood Chamber Tuesday, and one of the things I like to talk about is how employees think. So what's expected? So as a boss, as an employer, as an HR person, doing what's expected versus doing something that is sort of intentional. And I'll give you an example with my daughter. So my daughter works for a company here in town, well thought of company, and she's in sales and she's successful. So quarterly she keeps getting these bonuses. And the first time she got it, she was excited about it. Came home and told me about it, and she was excited about it. But every quarter she's sort of hitting this threshold. She's getting this bonus. Well, she just expects that now. So this same company took the time to have these custom-made socks made. And the CEO wrote a little note in there thanking every employee of the company for, and this was in January, thanking every employee in the company for the hard work that they'd given and that he wanted them to stay warm during the winter. And he mailed those to every person's mailbox. So on Friday, every person in their company got a note from the CEO with custom-made socks in a box personalized in their mailbox.
Right.
Now, that was probably a $10 per person cost.
Right. But it means something.
That's intentionality,
yeah.
right? That's unexpected.
Yeah.
Right? Expected versus unexpected. So as employers, what we have to be doing is doing those things that are unexpected. All of a sudden, you know, the food truck shows up one time unexpectedly. That's exciting. That's different, right? That's what, particularly with this younger workforce that's really connected, those are the kind of things that separate employers from just doing the same old stuff over and over and over again. And so that's what we have to do. We have to be thinking differently so we compete for that 1.8%.
And employees want it all.
They do.
There was a time where I want to be paid well, right? And I want to have some benefits. But now they want it all. They want more than that. And of course, you're alluding to it. What are the other types of things that employees are looking for today? When they call Herb and say, if you want me to work for you, this is what I'm looking for. What do they want?
Well, so great example. Harvard Business Review just came out with a study. 91% of employees feel like their immediate supervisor has poor communication skills. So 91%.
Note to self.
91%. So you start there. So, you know, it's funny when I'm consulting with customers about employee relations and sort of their strategy. You know, often the conversation gets to compensation and benefits, but you know what? It's communication and connectedness. That's where you spend your time. It's less expensive, right? Employees want to be developed. They want to have a relationship with their boss. They want truth. They don't mind directness, right? They want to understand the mission of the company. You know, it's fascinating how often on a consulting basis I go in. And one of the things I ask a CEO is, do you mind if I go out on the floor or into your facility and talk with 10 or 15 people? And how often when I ask them, do you know this year, what is the primary goal of this organization? They can't give me the answer, right? It's just communication and connectedness. And so that would be my advice to companies that might be watching this is, you can do a lot of things that don't cost a lot of money, that build connection with people, particularly as we begin to have employees that aren't every day in the workplace. Because I think we're going to have a challenge now with how do we have a remote workforce or a blended or a hybrid workforce, and how do we keep them connected? So that's the work we got to do.
We have to be aware of our blind spots, yeah?
Yep.
And we all have them.
We do.
We just don't know that we do.
Yep.
A few weeks ago, Forbes magazine published their 22 job market trends report, and I got a few things here that I just want to throw out at you. 3 of 4 full-time employees are planning to quit their job this year. Can that really be true? Surely not.
I hope not, because although that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, with the numbers that we saw last year. November, I think 4.7 million people resigned in November? Like in the month of November,
right?
4.7 million. I think there's an unrest, right? So I think there's a general unrest. So I think that stat is high. I think that there's just generally a, what can I do differently? There's just this check-in that everybody's having with, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing right now, but I don't really know what that looks like. And I think we're going to have to see how that pans out. I do think that as companies, so it goes back to what can we do? Because we can't control what everybody else thinks, but what as owners or business leaders or whatever, what we can control is, are we connected with our employees? Are we working on development? Are we communicating where we're going as a company? Are we connected to the community? Do we understand something about their family, right? Is there a relationship? Is there trust built? That's all the stuff that doesn't cost money. But I'll be honest with you, I go out with companies all the time. There's no time spent on that, right? Yeah, so that stat, I saw that stat, and I was going, wow, okay, because that's just going to create more openings that our organization's trying to fill. But I do think it signals an unrest that exists out there that everybody can feel, but they can't put their finger on.
from the same report, 79% of job seekers think they can make more money by switching jobs.
They can.
Is that because we all realize we have to pay more money these days and we're paying more money? I mean, everybody, 79% of the people can't all switch jobs and make more money. Surely there's not that many jobs that pay more money out there.
Well, what's happening is it's forcing everybody to compete. I mean, we're competing with our neighbor every day now.
Right. So you have to pay more money if you're going to compete, and that's where it's coming from.
And there's a point where, and again, this is coaching that I give to CEOs is, you know, instead of fighting in that space, because let me tell you what is true. An employee won't leave for more money if they love where they work.
Yeah.
So if I have a boss who I think is a good mentor, if I understand where the company is going, if I feel like I have a voice, if I feel connected to my coworkers, if I feel developed, $1 or $2 an hour or $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000 a year, I won't make a move for that. But I think all of this last 2 years has created this disconnection. And I think that the companies that are better are going to get out in front on that and not suffer that. But yeah, honestly, right now, it's a buyer's market for applicants. And that's white collar and blue collar. I mean, we do a lot of engineering placement. I've watched engineering salaries go up just exponentially over the last 2 years. I've seen that with accountants. I've seen that with people in logistics. I've seen that with just frontline supervisors, maintenance technicians. You know, I mean, I think I told you the announcement that Target made that they're going to be moving pay rates up to $21 an hour. I mean, right. Target was paying $12 an hour 3 years ago. Yeah. There's an explosion on the pay rate side.
One other statistic in that, again, we're talking about a report from Forbes magazine just published here recently, the job market trends report that they put out annually. Half of those that have changed jobs over the past year have been over 55. Mm-hmm. Getting into mine, yours, you know,
I fall in that category. I don't know about you, but I fall into that category.
I'm 56 in a couple weeks, just so you know. Anyway, tell me about that. Does that surprise you or no?
Yeah, that did surprise me. I saw that one as well. That did surprise me. I wonder if what that is. I'd be curious to. I'd love to see some of the underlying data on that. But I wonder if that isn't just sort of, you know, sort of one of the things I see in my industry is how often, and I see this particularly with men, where men feel trapped, where men hit a point where I've been a banker all my life, or I've been an attorney all my life, or I've been in construction all my life, or whatever the industry is. And I wonder if this period of time, this disruptive period of time that we've been in, that people at that age range just said, I just want to do something different. I just don't like what I'm doing, and I just want to do something different. I've done this for 30 years, and I want to do something different. And I wonder if it's just as simple as that, if it's just visceral. It's right. Just, I want to change.
You know, I think also that people obviously are making the decision that they don't have to continue to live a lifestyle that they've always lived. If we're going from a two-income family household to a one-income family, then obviously, you know, you're making sacrifices when you make that. But what you're wanting in return is more important than that two-income family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. That's the trade-off, right?
HR Industry Trends report came out recently. 76% of HR executives say this will be a permanent change and we ain't going back. Yes?
I agree.
Yeah?
I totally agree. I think people who think we're going to go back to 2019 are going to be those companies that are going to be left behind. I think we have to accept that because it's not just, I mean, a lot of times it's blamed on that period of COVID, but I actually think it's also generational. I think we have a generation that's really entering the workforce powerfully, and they demand different things than, because I'm a late boomer, right? So my generation takes a job, works for 2 years without asking for development, right? Moves up the ladder and stays with 1 to 3 companies through my whole career. This generation will work 15 to 20 jobs before they retire, right? So they're demanding, they expect to understand what their pathway is. They want to know that they're working for a good mentor. They want to understand the mission of the company. They'll push on benefits. They'll push on flexibility. They want to know what we're doing in the community. They care about, you know, how are we supporting the Ukrainians, right? I mean, that's that generation. And so if we're going to go ahead and hire these people and we're going to inspire them and promote them and have them begin to lead our companies, we're going to have to adjust. So I totally agree with that stat.
Well, before we get out of here, let's give some advice to our viewers. We've sat here and listened to you talk quite eloquently about what all these employees want and what they demand and what we need to do, but give some advice to our employers, folks like me. What is it that we really need to do to keep our employees happy and keep them from leaving us and retain, right? I mean, we got this up here, and I meant to mention it earlier, recruit and retain and recruit, incredibly important. Tell me what I need to do to retain. Go ahead.
Great question. If you don't want to have to recruit, then retain.
Right.
So, I mean, we make a lot of money helping companies because they have high turnover. Mm-hmm. But where we're really the space we're really moving into is helping companies retain. And it's a lot less expensive to retain than it is to continuously recruit. So one of the things that we created a whole new division that's just simply doing that, workplace strategies. And the focus is on how can we go ahead and build an organization that retains people. And my one piece of advice, because you asked for the one piece of advice, it starts with understanding the truth about where you're at right now. And so I was speaking with a group of CEOs last week. They asked me to speak with them. And that was the advice I gave. If you're afraid to don't be afraid to go ahead and sit down, have somebody come in, preferably neutrally, and find out exactly what the perception is of your employees about your company. Because if you want to move the needle and you want to start improving, you have to be okay with understanding the truth of where you're at. And that's okay, because the first step is the hardest step in making the change that you have to make to sort of change your culture and change your environment so that you retain where you're not constantly recruiting, right? So that would be my advice is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to find out the truth. Don't be afraid to look in the mirror and say, this is not who we need to be right now. And then you can start making the adjustments. And they don't have to be monumental. They just have to be small. Employees see the small stuff. You know, the socks that were delivered to the mailbox,
right?
$10 per person. That was probably a $4,000 impact. I heard everybody talk about that. Right. They're not talking about the $500,000 quarterly bonus. They're talking about the socks they got in the mail. They were intentional, right? They understood what their employees wanted to see. So that's what I would say. And if somebody needs a partner in helping them do that, obviously HTI is well positioned to help people take that first step.
That's right. Work hard to retain your folks, and if you can't, you need to recruit. You call this guy, folks. That is Herb Do. Herb is the founder and CEO of Human Technologies Incorporated, or HTI, a workforce strategies partner. Again, doing business throughout the Southeast, in the Midwest a little bit, but definitely all over South Carolina. Herb Do, thanks, pal.
I appreciate it. Enjoy it as always.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.